Hey everyone. So I wanted to do my next what's it called? Uh, video as a check-in video. I was gonna do it on the 28th, but I was like, well, my hepatology appointment's coming up, so I'm gonna do it uh, on the 2nd because that just makes sense, right? I like that better. I can see easier. Um, so, so here I am. Well, I was planning to do, the update video for this hepatology appointment that happened yesterday, but it turns out I had to go back to the hospital on the 21st. Um, I was vomiting blood and I didn't know where it was coming from. I mean, I was having a lot of nosebleeds, so I was like, well, maybe it's like the post-nasal drip and, from my nose or something. But I also knew that I had those varicose veins in my esophagus. I was like, oh my God, what if one of those ruptured? And I'm part of a cirrhosis support group, so I went to ask them. They're like, oh, you know what? You should go to the hospital. You don't know. And I was like, oh, that's true. I don't know. So I go to the ER and I tell them what's going on. Obviously, they have my records. So they're like, um, okay, well, they couldn't do anything because they're like a standalone ER. Like they're not attached to a hospital or anything. So like we're gonna have to go and admit you to Grant so they could do an endoscopy, make sure you don't have any ruptures or anything. And so I was like, yeah, okay. Um, so they just put me on some saline to keep me hydrated because when they put me on the saline, it takes away the nausea and the vomiting. So they're like, okay, we're gonna do that. And I was there for like 24 hours. It was so uncomfortable. Um, so yeah, finally, like the following day, I got to the ER about 3 on the 20th, 3 p.m. on the 20th, and then on the 21st, I didn't get a bed, or the ambulance didn't come pick me up from the ER on the 21st until about 8 o'clock. No, 5 o'clock p.m. That's when they took me to the hospital. So I get admitted and they it's a different ward this time. Like the first time it was the GI ward, this time it's the medical specialty ward. Um, which I guess they that's where they put hepatology patients. Um, but it wasn't as nice. Like my first room was like super nice, And my second room, it's like comparing the Hilton to Motel 6. Like my second room was like, damn. Um, it was basic. The TV was like this big, and then there's like 5 flies in the room, like 5 of them. And so I'm like sitting there like swatting at flies, and everyone's like, "Where the hell are all these flies coming from?" I'm like, "I don't know." And when one nurse was like, "You know what? There's flies, and it's cold outside. They come in here to stay warm." And she's like, there's flies in other rooms. And she's like, besides, she's like, this is a medical specialty ward. And so we have patients um, who are more difficult to take care of. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. I was like, no, it's no biggie. Um, so first thing, obviously, they treated me for was the vomiting blood. And so they did the endoscopy on me. And they were like, well, your varices are fine. We don't see any problems there. What we see is blood coming from higher up. Oh my God, look at my head. blood coming from higher up. And so we're thinking that's your nosebleed. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they had a ear, nose, and throat doctor come look at me to make sure there was no problems. And while I'm waiting for the ear, nose, and throat doctor, they also had an addiction doctor, medicine doctor, come and look at me for alcohol um, use. And I basically told them that I don't get cravings, I don't get like anything like that. And they're like, well, you know, we understand that you used to use alcohol in the past to deal with your issues. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, don't even crave alcohol anymore. I'm like, no. They're like, well, what do you use now? I said, well, I stopped drinking because alcohol was actually making me nauseous. So I couldn't drink it anymore. I said, but as I stopped drinking, I realized that things changed. Like I became more calm, more patient. I was more able to deal with my issues. Um, I'm looking into other forms of therapy and maybe getting back on my Zoloft, which worked great for me last time. And so, they're like, well, okay, that's good. They prescribed me some medication for cravings. They said, if you ever have a day or something where you may be tempted, just take one of these and it will help quell those cravings. So you're not going to want to drink. And so while I'm waiting for the ear, nose, and throat doctor, they had me on a pulse, oxygen pulse thing. Because I noticed that last time I was in the hospital, every time I fell asleep or sat in a different position, my oxygen levels dropped below 90%. And they were like, well, the doctor, the general medicine doctor for the ward said, well, did they ever look into that, why that is? I was like, no. All I had to do is every time the stupid alarm went off, take deep breaths to bring it back up, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to do every kind of test and whatever we have to do to figure out what's going on. And so I was like, okay, that's cool. And so she was like, have you had an ultrasound of your heart and lungs done? And I was like, no. So they did that. They did an ultrasound of my heart and lungs because I was sitting in bed and she was like listening to my lungs and stuff. And she was like, well, um, have you ever had issues with your heart or anything like that? I was like, no, my heart's okay. And she was like, okay, well, um, after they sent me down for the ultrasound and they said, well, uh, it looks like you have something called a flow murmur in your heart, which is also known as an innocent murmur, which is basically harmless. Um, sometimes there are valve problems or other things wrong with your heart, but it doesn't affect your life. Like you can live a normal life. And she's like, basically, that's what you have. Usually, it's caused like a couple of causes. She's like, I know you have kids, so it could be caused by pregnancy. She's like, do you have a history of anemia in your pregnancies? I said, yes. She's like, there you go. She's like, but you don't have to worry about it. You know, you'll be okay. So she was like, we also looked at your lungs. And she said that because they did an ultrasound on my abdomen and my lungs, and she says, well, you don't have enough fluid in your abdomen for us to drain. So we can do that naturally with medication. She was like, but you have a good amount of fluid in your lungs. She was like, that's what's causing your oxygen pulse to drop so low. And she's like, I notice you cough a lot. And I was like, yeah. I just like I take a deep breath and it's like I just start coughing. And she's like, yeah. She's like, you have fluid in your lungs. And she's like, that doesn't have anything to do with the cirrhosis. In fact, it probably has more to do with what's going on with your heart. Um, she's like, so we got to get that fluid out of your lungs. She's like, but what we're gonna do is because you have fluid in both places, we're gonna put you on a diuretic called Lasix. We're gonna give you double dose in your IV. She was like, now that's gonna make you have to pee a lot. She was not kidding. She was not kidding. Um, and see how that goes. And if your lungs get better, then we can keep you on medication. But if they don't get better, we have to do a thoracentesis, which means we stick something in your lungs and get the fluid out of there. I was like, okay, that's fine. Um, so they put me on Lasix and it started to work, and they put me on oxygen. I had humid oxygen to keep my nose from getting dry. Let's see. I have some of my paperwork. Discharge paperwork is always fun, right? Um, they gave me something called albuterol, which is basically an inhaler. Whenever I feel um, like a short of breath, so here's my inhaler. Um, they sent me home with Lasix in order to um, drain my lungs and my abdomen. As far as my cirrhosis goes, they said, you know what? Obviously they can't do much because my liver is toast. There's not much they can do. They said what we need to do. They said basically keep abstaining from alcohol, stay on a low sodium diet, um, and obviously if you do vomit blood, come in because we just need to keep an eye on those veins. So I was okay there. They sent me home with Mucinex for my congestion because I get congested at night. Just some stuff for my nose to keep it moist. I don't like that word, but it's the only word I can think of. They sent me home with the alcohol medicine to curb the cravings. I have GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease. Potassium supplements because the Lasix is pulling. Well, what's it? Yeah, because the Lasix is pulling liquid, it's also pulling potassium. So they gave me potassium supplements. Um, and that was basically the gist of my hospital stay. It was 5 days. Um, The whole 5 days, I was on a clear liquid diet. So I was living on Jello, Italian ice, chicken broth, and tea for 5 days. I was so hungry. But the weird thing was, I was like, oh, when I get out of here, I'm going to go to Burger King. I'm going to get the Italian chicken sandwich, which I grew up on and I loved. But it's like when I ate it, it was nasty. It was so salty and so gross. Like it was gross. So and it turns out my tolerance for salt has gone way down. Like everything is so freaking salty, I can't even eat it. So now when I order something or I buy something, I have to look at the sodium and make sure it's below 800 milligrams a serving. Because if it's higher than that, it's going to be too salty and I can't eat it. So it's not just about me consuming that salt, it's about me um, not being able to eat it because it's nasty. Um, so that was basically my hospital visit. Now, yesterday was my hepatology appointment, and that was pretty uneventful. Um, I went in and they took some blood, and which I'm black and blue all over the place, you know, from needle sticks and IVs and everything. And, um, it's a teaching hospital because my appointment was at Ohio State University Medical Center. So it's a teaching hospital. So of course they had students come in and listen to my um, what was going on with me, and did some tests on me and stuff like that. And other than that, he's like, well, how are you feeling? I said, great. I don't need my walker anymore. I move around better. I'm just better. Like, I feel better. He was like, good. He was like, the only problem I see is you've lost 50 pounds in the last 2 months. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. And he's like, so he's like, and you're on a potassium supplement and you're taking Lasix. I said, yeah. So what he did is he's like, he's putting me on another diuretic as well that works together with the Lasix. He's like, so this is going to be a second diuretic, but what it's going to do is going to work with the Lasix to pull the fluid out of your body, but it's going to keep the potassium in, so you're not losing so much potassium. Because aside from the supplements, I also drink Gatorade, I drink Powerade because they have added potassium. So I'm trying everything I can to keep my potassium up. He said that I basically have advanced end-stage liver disease, and he wanted to look at me maybe next appointment, wanted to look at an evaluation for transplant options for my liver, which I don't know, I don't know how to feel about that yet, because you hear organ transplant, it's like, but I feel fine. I don't feel like I need a transplant, but it's like on the flip side, I have a dead liver and no gallbladder, so it's like you need something, and it's like, yeah, I kind of do. So, but yeah, that's my update. If you guys have any questions, please drop them below. I'll be happy to answer them. Um, it's been interesting. Um, you know, this whole journey. What's next? I don't know. Am I scared? At the moment, I'm not because I feel good. I feel good. I'm on a low sodium diet. I drink lots of water. I take my medication like I'm supposed to. I stay away from alcohol. I'm doing everything I can to stay as healthy as I can. So, I guess it's just one of those things where you deal with things as they come instead of, because I don't want to tell my mom. She will freak out when she hears the word transplant. So, um, I know who to tell and who not to tell. I'm debating telling my oldest daughter because she's going to tell my mom. Mom's going to freak out, but that's okay. That's okay. All I have to do is reassure. And, next summer I'm moving to Las Vegas. I'll be closer to my mom. When I move to Las Vegas next summer, she's going to move from LA to Las Vegas to be close to us. She's like, I want to be there. Um, I'll take care of the kids. She wants to send me back to nursing school, which I'm really excited about. And, you know, this time when I go back to nursing school, I'm going to try to pay for it myself. I should be getting my equipment with our tax return either next month or February because my husband's always like an early bird filer. So I should be getting my equipment in the next couple days or months. I'm sorry, months. And then I'm going to start working every day and putting away money for my tuition. Um, my mom said she'll help pay my tuition. Um, she's going to sell her house. So she'll have some money, but she wants to buy herself like a modular home and myself a modular home in Las Vegas, so I'll have my own home. Um, and then she's like, I'll pay for school. I mean, I looked up the tuition for nursing school. It's like $65,000. But I can make monthly payments, and if I'm working as a stenographer freelance, I can make enough to make monthly payments. And I don't want to put the entire burden on my mom. So, but I am looking forward to going back to nursing school. I know we need nurses. We do. There's a shortage, and I think, my mom's getting up there in years. My mother-in-law is getting up there in years. I think being a nurse is a great skill to have. I would never put either of them in a nursing home. Um, I would want to be there to do everything I can, you know. So anyway, that's my video. And like I said, any questions, comments, concerns, testimonials, put them down below, and I'll answer best I can. Um, have a great week. Have a great day. Be healthy, and just be healthy and be responsible. Moderation is the key. Um, so I'll talk to you guys later.